Hello SLPs and welcome to our second introduction video. We hope that you are settling in to roughly your second week of school, getting that caseload and that schedule figured out. We know that that's a lot of work and we're wishing you well as you work through that. In this video, we will provide an overview of the learning plan for the year. We will also provide an example of an application activity and a learning log entry, and then we will wrap it up with an overview of the community of practice meetings and what to expect in those. Now we are going to provide an overview of the learning plan for the year. I'm going to show you an example on the next slide, and just know that this is not necessarily a specific district, just an example, so it may not match up with your district's exact schedule. Here's an example of a learning plan schedule for a district. And as you can see on the left-hand side, there are the dates and topics that we'll be going over. In the middle, there's the module format, so it'll show you if it's a training video week, an application activity week, or a community of practice week. And on the right-hand side are the most important dates that you need to make note of. So throughout our learning together, our focus is really going to be on setting goals or action items to really impact change in our assessment practices, and then really working collaboratively to achieve those goals. As you can see on the learning plan schedule, we note group community of practice meetings. These meetings are for all the SLPs in your district to attend. You also see some notes on there about coaching for a lead SLP or SLP leaders. And this is meant for a small group that we'll be working with within your district. So throughout the first year, we are exploring coaching with your lead SLP and maybe a few other leader SLPs. And eventually WisCCA strives to support districts to have more individualized support systems, such as peer-to-peer or SLP to SLP coaching. As you scroll through that learning plan document, you might notice that after some topics it says supplement. So on this slide, if you look at topic, norm referenced assessment, and then supplement behind it, what that means is this month we're trying to give you some flexibility. Let's say that you have a planned vacation, or you have a really busy season in your schedule, or you have something come up in life that maybe you are absent from work for a little while. We're trying to provide some flexibility within the learning we do throughout the year, so that if you are unable to complete a module, that's okay. In the next video, we'll go over the grant participation expectations in more detail so that you kind of know, well, how many modules, how many application activities and things like that do I actually need to complete? But what's really meant with those supplements is to give you a little bit of flexibility with this plan throughout the year. I'm sure that many of you are wondering what an example of an application activity is. Let's say that your module for the month is focusing on criterion referenced assessments. The training video is all around that topic. Within that training video, let's say we bring up the Wisconsin State Academic Standards. We discuss how these can be utilized as a criterion reference tool. We demonstrate some examples within the video, and then at the end of the video, we suggest that you pick a few standards to review, and then maybe pick one or two of those standards to have a follow-up conversation with the teacher. And maybe it's for a student on your caseload in preparation for an annual IEP. Maybe it's for a student you're currently evaluating for an initial evaluation. And we'll give you some guidance to have these discussions to maybe explore needs, explore progress, explore educational impact. And the hope is that it's kind of built into some of your already planned therapy sessions, collaboration meetings, etc. So if you meet with a teacher weekly and a student that you're evaluating is also in that class, maybe you're going to bring those one or two standards. You'll engage in that discussion for a few minutes with that teacher. Maybe you'll learn that they have a rubric that relates to some standards that you're curious about. Maybe it sparks an idea for a progress monitoring tool. Maybe it sparks an idea for some sort of assessment you might do within your evaluation process. So the hope is that we can give you some ideas and then you can kind of take it and make it your own. We know that not all of the application activities are going to apply to every single SLP. You might not have a student that fits kind of what we're describing. That's okay. There is some flexibility within this. You can get creative Take it, make it your own, what you need it to be for you, your learning, your needs, and your students. We'll give you some suggestions, we'll give you some guidance, and just know that we are trusting you as professionals to kind of take it and do what you need to do with it and applying that learning from that video. After you've had some time to complete your application activity, you will go in and complete a learning log entry. Each SLP will have their own learning log, and it will be stored on our Google Drive folder that is shared with your department through our WisCCA Google Drive. Here's an example of a learning log. As you can see on the left-hand side, there is a table of contents, and this table of contents reflects your individual district's learning schedule so that you can easily navigate and click on the hot links to get where you need to go depending on the week. In our previous example, we discussed criterion referenced assessment, so I'm going to go to that section, which is here on the screen. Within the learning logs, we do have space for you to take notes while you're watching the training videos if you would like to. If you have another method, feel free to do that. Do what works best for you and your learning. So after I've completed my application activity and before the community of practice meeting, I'm going to come to this document and work through some of the application activity questions. You'll see throughout this document we have some of the same general questions under the application activities. Summarize what you did, what went well, what was challenging, questions and wonderings. Some months when we give you an application activity, John and I might ask some different types of questions or give you a task that doesn't quite match up with these reflection questions, and that's okay. Feel free to edit the questions and edit parts of this document as needed based on the questions that we ask and your needs. These questions are really just general things that we'd like you to do each time if you're not given a different direction. So getting to our example of criterion referenced assessments. So I'm going to briefly summarize what I did. I reviewed third grade ELA standards with a classroom teacher for a student on my caseload. Then I'm going to reflect on what went well. I learned a little bit more about what was expected in the classroom and where my student was performing. I got some insight about possible needs to inform upcoming reevaluations that I'm doing with that student. The teacher also shared a rubric that they use that relates to a couple of the standards. Something that was challenging was that there's a lot of standards, and it was hard for me to focus in on just a few standards at a time. And then something that I'm kind of wondering about is if there's a checklist or a resource that we can use to really help with these conversations. Once I've completed this entry, that's all I'm going to do up until the community of practice meeting. Now, these application activity learning log entries are meant to be brief reflections. We don't expect you to write several pages, so take some time, reflect, jot down the key ideas that will help you to engage during the community of practice and key ideas that will help you when thinking of an action item and something you want to do moving forward. If you feel you're spending a lot of time on this and it's becoming a hassle for you, please touch base with us so that we can figure out how to make some modifications so that it works better for you. We want this document to serve as a note-taking tool, a reflection tool, along with action items that are really going to help impact our clinical practices and making change, and then ultimately benefit our students rather than just spending a bunch of time filling out a document. So you've worked through the training, you've had some time to do the application activity. We're entering into that last week of the month. We are going to engage in a virtual community of practice meeting. So what is a community of practice? This is a group of people who get together because they share a common concern or passion for something. So in our case, our learning surrounding comprehensive assessments. And we're working together to learn how to do it better through regular interaction and collaboration. So like I said, these community of practice meetings will typically occur once a month for 45 to 60 minutes. As you can see on your learning schedule, some months we don't have one due to breaks or things like that, but most months we have them. When you attend a community of practice meeting, John and I will be there as facilitators. Your lead SLP or some SLP leaders within your department will also be there. They will be participating, and eventually they may shift into more of a facilitator role as well. We're trying to build sustainability within your group throughout the time that we work with you so that when the grant is no longer there, you can continue some of these same systems and supports that we have supported you through the grant. And everyone else, the department SLPs, we just want you to come and engage and collaborate and participate to the best of your ability. You know, what you put into these meetings is really what you're going to get out of these meetings. And the hope is that it's a time for reflective and collaborative conversations. We're going to discuss some things that were hard, that were easy, and really what can we do to move forward and really impact change within our practices. A little bit more information about the overall structure of these meetings. We'll start with a brief check-in, see where everyone's at, how are you doing? Then we'll establish a few simple goals for the meeting. What are we going to talk about today? What's our objective here? Then we're going to engage in those discussions, and we will utilize breakout rooms, breaking into smaller groups based on need, based on level, interest, things like that. We might ask for some share outs. We'll try to include some different strategies like jam boards and chat and things like that to get everyone engaged and making people feel comfortable to participate and share. And then we will end the community of practice meeting by asking for some quick feedback through a 1 to 2 minute survey. Where are you at? Do you still need help? You're good to go. Let's move on. And we will also ask you to go into your learning log and jot down a action item, a next step. So once we've done our learning, we've practiced our learning, we've collaborated around it, now what are we going to do? What change are we going to make? How are we going to continue this learning? Here's an example of a learning log entry following a community of practice meeting. So I took a few notes for myself at the community of practice. I wanted to make sure I had the most recent scope and sequence ELA documents for my district, and then I wanted to see if we had any other documents relating to the standards. So then my action item, my next step is to really dig into the district curriculum documents to learn more about the standards and then really deepen my understanding of some of the 3rd grade ELA standards because I have a lot of students on my caseload with language needs in 3rd grade. So I'm just setting a goal that I'm going to keep continuing my learning in this area. One other thing we want to note is at the end of the community of practice meetings, when we have you fill out that short survey to gauge where you're at, that would also be a place where you could communicate to us that you need some more support, you have questions unanswered that you want us to answer, or you just want to continue the discussion. And we can offer some small group follow-up discussions or even an individual meeting if needed. So the learning doesn't have to stop right after the community of practice. We're going to kind of offer these intermittent supports throughout based on feedback from you. So wrapping up this second introduction video, what to expect in next week's video. We will go over grant participation expectations in a little bit more detail in the next video so you know what's expected throughout the entire year. Next week, you will also get access to the WisCCA Google Drive folder for your specific district. And then we'll also make sure that you know how to navigate the resources and find what you need to then begin your learning in a week or two. As always, feel free to reach out to me or John if you have immediate questions, things you're still wondering about that you don't think we'll cover in the next video. Please reach out. We're more than happy to touch base and provide support. Look forward to next week's video to answer a few more questions, a little bit more of that getting started information. And then towards the end of September, beginning of October, we will send out that first learning module.